Hello, Danny. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Wrestling with all the amount of buttons I have to press just to get on. Get on.
Everything good with you?
Yeah, I believe so.
Busy days with interviews promoting the Screaming of the Valkyries.
Yeah, busy week. Yeah,
Ver-
absolutely.
Very good. And, before we dive into the new record, last year you guys did the European tour. You guys played Portugal. How was that tour in general for you guys and the show in Portugal?
It was great. All our tours are really monumental to us. Yeah, it was fantastic. We had a great time. Portugal was an amazing show. Really loved it. I had a very good time in Portugal. My partner came to visit at the sort of back end of the Spain run, and so we had that day, and then the next we stayed in a hotel, and then we went to Sintra the next day,
Yeah,
which was amazing.
yeah,
So yeah, so even if the gig was shit,
yeah.
it wasn't. The gig was amazing, and I really liked that venue as well. It was really cool. A little far out of town, but yeah, cool. So yeah, the couple of days I spent in Portugal was fantastic. It was you know a real highlight of the tour.
Cool. And, the Screaming of the Valkyries, when did you guys exactly, can you pinpoint to when you guys start working on the songs for the album?
Not really. Probably about 2.5 years ago. Um, we just picked up two new members. So obviously they had to integrate into the band because they were expected to write as well, which they did. And uh, we were touring prolifically.
Yeah.
Post lockdown, we have been touring non-stop. And I guess that's how the album has taken a little longer to come out, is because even the recording took a year because, or the span of a year, because we were busy filling the gaps in by touring. Or the other way round, if you look at it that way. We'd do the drums, maybe the bass, I think, and then we went on tour with Wednesday 13 and that around Europe. Well, at least the other end of Europe.
Yeah.
Then we came back and did some more guitars and what have you. Then it was like that really for the span of almost a year. Um, yeah, I guess we were playing catch up after the pandemic, just wanting to get out there and play as much as we could live.
Yeah.
But that being said, the album was delivered to the record company last July. So I'm currently having a bit of a second wind with it as I kind of, once I listened to it so much, I was
Yeah.
like, I've had enough. Don't listen to it again. And then, yeah, just past Christmas. Well, actually, past Zoe and Ashok's wedding, which was at the beginning of the year in Arizona. I started having to listen to it again for the onslaught of interviews, and yeah, started getting back into it.
And, one of the things I really like about, Cradle of Filth in general are the lyrics. You put, effort, you create, stories. How long normally does it take for you to come up with a lyric for a song? Is it hard work? Because sometimes when I'm, reading the lyrics, I have to have the dictionary beside me because there are some words. They are not, the for a Portuguese non-English speaker,
Yeah, yeah, of
sometimes.
course.
So normally, how long does it take for you to, to write a lyric for a song?
I don't know. It depends. It depends how difficult the song is, or the inspiration. Sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes it seems to take forever. If the song is, you're trying to get it to work, or whether it's a case of it doesn't work, and then you go back with everybody and say, right, okay, this is not working here. We need to extend this part or take this bit out, and then of course it needs a rewrite. And that always happens with at least a couple of songs per album. So it differs. I'd love to say there was a formula.
Yeah.
People say, how do you guys write an album? I wish there was a formula, because it would just mean it would, here's this period of days and then you're done. And then, but unfortunately art doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Well, especially in the more extreme kind of music. And, in the metal world, it's not as probably as template as in pop music, where nowadays, you know, the songs start right away with a hook, with a vocal, and it's just weird for me. I like to hear guitar riffs. I like to hear intros, and pop music these days is just straight.
But it has
it-
to be because people lose interest, don't they? They've been given so much that it's like too much sugar
yeah,
onto your tea. Like that. It's like a little bit of a bad thing is a good thing.
yeah,
Too much bad thing is obviously a mega bad thing, and I think that applies to music as well. I think music was without suddenly going on a hideous rant about it, but I can only talk from my experience. But back in the day when we didn't have the internet. And now I'm saying that I feel like a bloody old man, like back in my day, music was proper.
yeah,
No, but back in the day when the internet wasn't prevalent, and for me, keeping abreast of the scene meant tape trading,
yeah,
sending tapes out, waiting for them to come back, distributing flyers. And even then, in 92, 93, I wasn't earning enough money to have a landline, like a proper telephone.
yeah.
So I'd be doing a lot of interviews from a telephone box in my village. There'll be about three or four disgruntled old women standing outside, rapping on the door with their canes. And I'll be like, sorry, I'm in the middle of the interview. I've probably got another 30 minutes. Use the other one. It's about a mile up that way, up that hill.
I remember those days where I did interviews with bands, and we have to put like a recorder near the speaker
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, of course, yeah. But I think it made everything a bit more magical when everything wasn't like, for example, it was a few years before. It's remarkable how close it is actually in years, but 1987, 1986, I think it was. Yeah. I ordered a copy of Hell Awaits. I already had Shown No Mercy, and I got a pre order of Rain in Blood from America way before anybody in Europe did, just by chance. So I pre ordered this Hell Awaits. It took 6 months. It took 3 months to get it. And I ordered it from a department store called Debenhams. Seriously. And when he got it, it had a chip out of it, and so it wouldn't play properly, or you'd have to start the song sort
Yeah,
of halfway through Hell Awaits. So I sent it back. So the whole time it took 6 months. But boy, when I got it, I loved it. And
yeah,
now that's what I mean. The immediacy of music now, you're just like, next, next, next.
yeah,
I still buy CDs, and for that reason alone, I get to appreciate it more, especially if I put it in my car,
yeah.
because I probably won't take it out for about a month. So I just forget about it. Currently, I have the new Obituary album in the car, and it's been in there for a week and a half.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. I like to, as you can see behind me, there's vinyl, there's CDs. I prefer the physical format to listen to music. I use Apple Music, but normally it's just for the car because I got a new car and it doesn't come with a CD player. So I have to, plug the freaking phone anyway. And, keeping on the subject of lyrics for you, um, what normally does interest you to write about, or where do you try to get that inspiration to write the lyrics? Watching a movie, reading a book, what does inspire you normally?
Well, it's getting trickier because trying to be very original with things and do things from new angles if you can't be original and whatever. So that puts a little bit of a I don't know. It makes it harder from the word go if you're trying to achieve something that's not completely original, because I don't think anybody can do that anymore.
Yeah,
It's all bled into one another, but as much as it is possible. Um, and inspiration comes from anything. I haven't been reading enough, to be honest. I'm starting to get back into reading a lot, um, for various reasons. But for this album, inspiration came from the events that are happening in the world today, personal things, the weather, the time it was being recorded, what I was listening to, theatre. It comes from anything and everything. Again, there is no shortcut.
Yeah.
Other than I do take notes, and if I might be in the middle of a department store again, then I go, oh God, yeah, I've got this great idea, but I'll just jot it down on the phone and then add it to my notebook so that future me can go, oh, I'm shit out of ideas. Oh wait, there's one that I think will work. So if anything, it's not immediate but an ongoing issue with lyrics.
And with the way you're talking about current events, it's kind of hard to stay away from it and not be annoyed or pissed off and not be tempted to write about it, because for more that we want to stay away from the news and from all those negative shit that happens, every day there's something that pops up that makes you want, I don't know, just grab someone by the neck and just...
Well, it's a fucked up state of affairs at the moment. And aside from the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, we've had got the events happening in the Sudan. We've got the events happening with Israel and Palestine. God knows what North Korea are up to. China, doing war drills with Russia and, talking about taking back Taiwan. And it's just and that's all without Trump and what he's doing at the moment. I've always seen heavy metal as escapism. Ever since I was a kid and first got into metal, that's exactly what made me entranced by the whole thing, was the pure escapism of it all, from the artwork to the lyrics, which sometimes you never got lyrics because it was an import.
Yeah.
But you kind of had to, there was nothing to go and check them out against on the internet. So you'd make up what was going on between the photos, everything about it. It would color your whole imagination. And I got lost in it. I really did. And I had a great childhood. I had nothing to escape from. It just added to that whole, bubble of fairy tale-ness that a good childhood should be. And I brought that with me like a Peter Pan figure into my 50s now. And it's a lifestyle. Every now and then, I must admit, it creeps into the lyrics. The title was inspired by world events, or at least it came from the song that is the most inspired by world events, which is When Misery Was a Stranger, and represents the cataclysmic event, the finality of hearing, like seeing an atom bomb explode or witnessing a tidal wave rise above you. It's that finality, that moment of, oh my God, it's all over, this is it. If you were to hear, like, worldwide, this horrible screaming from the heavens and realize that our last line of defense to Asgard was destroyed, slain to the four winds, and that Ragnarok was happening, which is the end of everything. So Everyday World does permeate the lyrics sometimes. You could also say it's a very heavy metal album title if you just want to get away from it, which it is. Normally, it's all about escapism. And I think this album also has some nods back to earlier Cradle classics like Dusk, Cruelty of Midian, maybe even Damnation and Amphetamine. Due to the atmosphere, I'm not going to hold court and say, oh, it sounds exactly the same, because I'm going to get people saying, this sounds nothing like Dusk and Embrace, and it shouldn't either. Yeah. It's a new album. But atmospherically, musically, and at times vocally, it does hark back to previous times. And I don't think it's a crime to self-plagiarize a band that's got a strong identity anyway, because you're just saying, well, we still got a strong identity, but we can only go so far. I know we work with orchestras and we have that element as well, and we can explore sort of all kinds of samples and keyboards as well as the metal, but it's still this wide. It's not like, okay, we can dabble in Dutch techno or, anything of that ilk, reggae or something like that. We still have parameters, and I think we explore them on this album to the best of their ability.
Yeah, listening to the record again, as you said, and I think you nailed it perfectly. It's really a mix of what Cradle has been, throughout all these years. Musically, atmospherically, it's a great record. One of the songs I really enjoyed was the Trinity of Shadows. The guitar work there is really good, great melodies, and everything I love that draws me into Cradle of Filth is there. Absolutely love, that song. And the album in general is really, really, really good. And
Thank you for that. It's really, really, really disappointing.
no, but I think for a band that's been doing this for so long, as you said, there's you cannot really dabble into different kinds of
Well, you
music.
can, but
You
you're going
could,
to lose fans pretty quickly, I think.
yeah, but you have idea. I mean, even for you, you expect to do a certain work with Cradle of Filth. There is something that you expect when the name Cradle of Filth comes to mind, and you really cannot, stretch too much. Otherwise, I know people will complain anyway. If you do it, if you
People are
sound
going to
like
complain full stop. You can't please everybody. That's something I have learned over the years, and you have to just turn a blind eye or a cold shoulder to criticism, especially if it's unjust. Because when I ask journalists or people who have heard the album their favorite songs, it's always like it's a good tester of people's opinions, and it's been a very spread across the board. Like the Ukrainian guy I was speaking to earlier, his favorite songs were, funnily enough, The Trinity of Shadows, When Misery Was a Stranger, and Non Omnis Moria. And mine are like Malignant Perfection and Ex Sanguine Draculae. And yeah, it's good that it's not just all piled up on one song, and that everybody that, because the modus operandi, our reason for this album being was to write an album that wasn't bloated, so no unnecessary stuff, no special edition tracks this time round, no demo reworkings for release in Timbuktu. We just wanted this is the album, 9 songs, and each song is as perfect as we can get it and as catchy. It doesn't, by catchy doesn't necessarily mean commercial.
yeah.
Although it can do, obviously, because you're not going to get into the charts if you don't have choruses. And just for Transylvanian Hunger's got about 5 choruses. That's my example. So yeah, I think we've actually, what we intended to do, we've actually met.
Yeah.
And hopefully people will love it for that.
Yeah. I think this kind of music, I say this to, to some metal bands. One of the things that we can sense, it's the honesty in the music that it's done. It's not being done for seeking some commercial success or something like that. It's something that you guys enjoy doing it. And if you enjoy doing it, we as listeners will enjoy listening to it as well, because we can sense the honesty in that. I mean, I'm old. I'm old, and I've listened to a lot of music, and I can sense when something is done from the heart, that is honest, and something that is made for someone else to sing. I sense that. I'm not, magician or anything like that, but as a human being, I can sense that. And
well, yeah, it's like this whole AI thing. You'd be able to sense that as well, because it's like a droid, isn't it? It's like it doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a soul. What it's doing is just repeating information from millions and millions of tiny bite-sized bits of information and reconfiguring it. And it is kind of scary. But yeah, you'd be good in Terminator.
Yeah.
It if out the
And
sniffing out, sniff out the cyborgs.
yeah, well, with AI the way it's going and with like robots they're creating, I mean the uprising has been it's been further away than it is now. I you know I don't want to touch any of those robots just in case they decided to
Exactly.
uprise anyway. But for you, for doing this kind of music for as long as you are, and especially how demanding it is, the vocals for you, how do you take care of it, and how long do you still think you can do this for, at this pace? And
It's a weird time to ask me because I feel very defenseless at the moment. Because I'm on downtime, I'm on vocal rest. So basically, it's like I know, I'm not going to liken myself to a very expensive sports car, but I'm going to. Yes, it's like having a racing car, and it needs to have, before you go and put it out on the racing track, it's got to be brought up to speed. It's been sitting in the garage for God knows how many months, and that's a bit like me. It's like we've got some downtime, but none of it is musical. So it's going to take me probably four rehearsals before I'm back to full firing power. So at the moment, asking me that question makes me feel like it's not a great example because I'm not doing anything. But by not doing anything is part of the vocal rest anyway.
yeah,
Um, and I often think when I'm in this mode, like, how am I going to get back to that again? It seems like I listen to the album, I listen to live performances, and I think, Jesus, I'm never going to get back to that. And the first rehearsal, you're either amazing or you're utter shit. And there's always that, like, oh my God, yeah. But it's a muscle thing. It's
yeah.
about muscle memory, muscle strength. Um, and you do get back to that. But it's like people say as well, can you do this? Can you just do some singing? I go, right this second. I go, no. And they're like, oh, why? Can't you do it? It's like, no, because I'm on vocal rest. You don't jump to sixth gear from standing still. You're going to fuck your engine up.
Yeah. I remember when WWE came to Portugal many years ago for the first time, they did a press conference. And, being a wrestling
It's true.
fan,
Who
WWE
is it?
wrestling, WWE wrestling,
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah.
and they did a press conference. And, I'm a wrestling fan and I know what to ask and not to ask. But there was a journalist there. The first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Can you show us some moves?"
I should have picked him up and thrown him. There you go.
Well, I think that was what he was asking for. I don't know, just to be grabbed and thrown out of the press conference. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird to ask someone to, just because, I mean, it's me as a photographer, for instance, just take a picture just out of the blue. I don't do that. It's just kind of strange anyway. And, with the album coming out, you guys already have a, European tour announced. For the remaining of the year and for next year, it's going to be relentless touring.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, absolutely. Although we may actually go back into the studio toward the back end of the year. I'm not gonna don't put that as a headline and anything because it's probably not. Well, it may do. It depends. We had something at the end of the year that we were pushing for that's going to be massive, and that's going to have to be moved a year. For whatever reason, it has to be moved because the other parties involved won't be ready. So with that in mind, we may have space, and we're going to take advantage of it because we've already begun writing a new record, and so that may intervene, but it wouldn't intervene for too much because we'd get the majority of that done before we began the relentless bout of touring again. But yeah, for the rest of the year, this year, we have a new video coming out next week for White Hellebore. Album release next Friday. About a month later, we're off I'm actually off to LA to work on something else with a friend. But then we we begin a co-headline with Dying Fetus of all bands in America as part of the Chaos and Carnage festival tour. Then we come back and do a load of summer festivals, and in between we have Nervosa supporting us on other dates. Then we go down to South America in August for about 5 weeks, and then it starts like, is this happening or not? We're sort of like booking agents, putting things in place. So yeah, it's going to be busy, of course.
Yeah. And, just to wrap it up, obviously you have been we've talked before, you've been very vocal about some streaming platforms. There is a new one called Rock Streaming. I don't know if you heard or if you're, intend to, but how can, I was talking with an artist, and he was saying that like with Spotify, they are creating AI music, AI bands just to pay themselves, where people will stream those bands without knowing they are AI.
Well, I don't know about that. I want to just I wasn't, when I had that conversation with a journalist, and it became a thing because a lot of people have commented on my comments, and I chose that particular platform because it's like if somebody was talking about, I don't know, burger joints, I'd go for McDonald's or Burger King, because if I go for a local one, Bob's Burgers in Ipswich, people are going to go, who? What? I can't relate to that. So I was using them as an example. I think the problem here, and I did say this during the interview, but they only kept the bit they wanted to hear, really, was it's not the streaming platform, because everybody's going to make money. It's like if something comes into fashion, like vaping, there'll be loads of vaping shops. It goes without saying, people are going to make money off something that's a commodity. The same with music. So my problem here is mainly, and I did say this, is with governments not enforcing enough legislation, enough tariffs or whatever it needs to be on music, so that from the off, if a new platform starts up, immediately they are paying a better percentage to the authors of said music.
Yeah.
And that needs to come from the ground up. And if you don't believe me, I mean, the government have done it with so many other things, like they put tariffs on things, especially and caps on it's the other end of the spectrum, but for like energy companies that are making, charging people a fortune, but are still, the CEOs are taking home millions still. They're price capping those. The government can enforce that. So my problem here is with them is, why cannot that be done? There's a problem with the music industry. The industry used to make a huge amount of money toward, the capita of a country. So why is more being done to protect the musicians? Because if they're not getting paid, they're going to leave. They can't.
Yeah.
I know people after the pandemic who and you'd be surprised who they are. Big bands that I've spoken with who've said, we probably won't do another album, or if we do, it'll be more like, once every 4 or 5 years, because they've got jobs now. They found a job during the pandemic. They can work at home. They can earn 4 times the amount of money. They love music. Yeah. So it becomes a big hobby for them. And, a holiday now, like their idea, when they go and do summer festivals, it'll be like a holiday as opposed to just another work thing. And you'll be very surprised if I told you who told me all this. Well, it's not just one, it's maybe 3 or 4 different bands or people from bands, one of which is not going to be doing very much from now on at all. So, that was my problem with it.
Yeah.
And you can't stop people. I mean, I don't blame people for going to Spotify or Tidal or whatever. I will say that CDs, and I did an experiment the other day with one to prove to my partner, CDs sound better. But if you've got it on a good system of separates or whatever, good speakers, and you've got a CD or a DAT or whatever, it's going to sound so much better. Vinyl. So you're just kidding yourself. But I don't blame people for wanting, to listen to what they want when they want. and go exploring. And that's what these platforms are essentially good for. But unfortunately, that's what they're using as a weapon. It's like, well, we shouldn't really have to pay you anymore because people are discovering your music. And so,
Yeah.
well, yeah, they are discovering our music, but it's not paying us any. It just means more people like the band.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily translate to keeping the band alive. But it's
Yeah.
a sticky, thorny subject,
Yeah, I know, and I think you're right. I think government should really be more hands-on when it comes to this kind of stuff, especially protect art and protect artists, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And when festivals happen, there's people from different countries that travel. So, it's an important for have a proper legislation for this kind of things to protect the bands, to protect the artists. And, at the end of the day, you'll have people flying and going to concerts and traveling and all that stuff. And that's money as well. So, they should really be more hands-on when it comes to that. Dani, thank you very much for your time. I won't keep you anymore. It was great talking to you. Hopefully we'll see you guys again in Portugal soon, maybe next year or this year again, if that can happen. So
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, like I say, new video out next week and then the album.
yes, amazing record. You don't want to sleep on it because, again, Cradle of Filth delivering a great, great record. Thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you soon. All right, Dani, thank you. Thank you so
Obrigado.
much. Thank you. Bye-bye.